May 28th, 2019, regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Austin. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the republic, a nation, God, justice.
Present. Councilmember Wilshire.
Present.
Councilmember Feldman.
Present.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Here.
We'll begin tonight with public hearings in the matter of local law number 2, 2019, abolishing the office of elective town superintendent of highway and creating the office of appointed town superintendent of highways subject to mandatory referendum. Local law number 3, abolishing the office of elected town receiver of taxes and creating the office of appointed town receiver of taxes subject to a mandatory referendum. And local law number 4, 2019, abolishing the office of elective town clerk and creating the office of appointed town clerk subject to a mandatory referendum.
So thank you. We are going to open the public hearing for these 3 local laws concurrently since they all are similar, and that's how we have been doing this. I just wanted to mention that, as many of you already know, because we've had this public hearing going now for some time and open for some time, and we did extend and push back the referenda vote until the November election so that it would be concurrent with the regularly scheduled election in November. We have been talking about the notion that there are opportunities with some recent retirements in these elected offices to think about how we do business and how we can modernize some of the offices that that serve the public. So one of the things that we undertook, the town and actually the village together, applied for a shared services grant through the Department of State. One of the initiatives that the Governor Cuomo introduced some years back was for local offices, local governments to look at ways that they could operate more efficiently. And there is money available through grants to do that. So the town and village got together, applied for a grant to look at ways that we could operate more efficiently, specifically looking at the offices of our highway department as well as our parks department to see if there were ways that we could work together, village and town, village of Austin, town of Austin. At the same time, some other retirements came up, and that was that we had a retirement in our receiver of taxes office, and we had an opportunity to appoint somebody into the position of receiver of taxes who then subsequently actually ran for that office. And we most recently had a retirement in for our highway superintendent, our elected highway superintendent of many years. So and also our town clerk has announced that she was not going to run for re-election. So again, we had another opportunity to look at that elected office as well. Recently, we were just looking at something interesting. I thought this was kind of fun. This has actually been up on the wall in the town office for some time. It may even be the original document. No, I take it back. It says copy, March 8th, 1979. And it says the following persons were duly elected town officials for the new town of Austin on the 20th day of May, 1845. We had a supervisor, a town clerk, just 2 justices of the peace, the superintendent of community schools, maybe, assessors, 3 assessors, commissioner of highway, overseers of the poor, collectors, constables, sealer of weights and measures, inspectors of election number 1 appointed, and inspectors of election number 2 appointed. So dating back many years, we had many elected offices. And as times have changed and governments have changed and modernized, they've looked for ways to make government more efficient. The other thing that happened is in 1870, which was following the establishment of the town of Austin and many other local municipalities, the federal government adopted civil service law. to basically establish minimum qualifications for jobs. So those are in place now as qualifications that we as a town board use when we hire into any positions. And as everybody knows, you elect a town board to represent you and to oversee the budget and make sure that we are fiduciarily responsible to the people. So we have an obligation to make sure that we are spending thoughtfully and responsibly the dollars that we collect when we levy taxes. So given all of that, we had an opportunity to look for ways that we can make government more efficient. And we believe that there are opportunities by making these offices appointed that we think that the people should have an opportunity to weigh in on. And they will have that opportunity if everything continues to proceed forward to vote. All of the public will have an opportunity to vote to determine if, in fact, those offices should continue to be elected offices or could become appointed offices. And just so you know, again, there are civil service positions that are in place for the appointed offices, either of a superintendent of highway, or it could be a superintendent of public works, could be the position that we appoint into. And we've also been looking at merging with some kind of a transition period, the office of receiver of taxes and the office of clerk, because we believe that those two offices can run successfully as one office and serve the people better by having more people on a regular basis available in those offices, and their schedules basically, we believe, have an opportunity to work together well so that we could have more people serving everybody regularly in that combined office. And of course, there would be an opportunity for administrative savings, which might not be realized immediately, but we know that we could absolutely realize probably about $100,000 a year, $100,000 a year in savings at the point when we get to those combined offices. So we know that there will be a transition period that would take place, but if the people support this idea of modernizing government, making it more efficient, I think that this would be a great opportunity to take advantage of that. With that said, these public hearings are an opportunity to hear from the public. We do know that there's been a lot of talk on some of our social media outlets, and we will post some FAQs to address some of the questions that have been raised in social media as well. So we should have that probably up on the town website and the Project Forward website by the end of this week. So with that, I invite anybody from the public to please come and address the board on local laws 2, 3, and 4. Please just state your name and where you live.
Hi, thank you, board. Kim Jeffrey from 100B Morningside Drive. You are correct that there is conversation going on in social media, and something that I've noticed with respect to these public hearings is that there's an amazing amount of people who have no idea that this conversation is happening. And it made me think about the fact that when the town board from a few administrations ago decided to undertake the reassessment of the town of Ossining, which many people were not thrilled about, I will say that there was an extensive outreach done by the then town supervisor and the assessor, because that's who had the most information with respect to the reassessment. And they went everywhere. They went to the condos, they went to the senior centers, they went to any meeting that they could have. And maybe people didn't like it, and maybe they didn't want it, although some people did, but they made sure that people knew that this very big, very important, very large change was going to happen. I don't see any of that here. I understand that you had 2 informational meetings. There are about 6 of us that showed up. I know that you say there was a town-wide survey. I understand, supposedly there was, but I'm telling you that I didn't see it. Nobody I know saw it. and 177 responses tells me that most people out of, I mean, what my memory from the assessor's reassessment was that there were 10,000 parcels in the greater town of Ossining, and that over 7,000 of those were residences. So out of 7,000 residences, you got 177 responses. So that's my first concern, is that nobody knows about this. And if you go to look for it on the town website, if you even know that there's such a thing that exists, it's very difficult. The other thing is that, you know, I think it's no surprise that I have extreme concern about the fact that we are trying to take away, that there's an attempt to take away the ability to elect positions, that it is my opinion that the town receiver of taxes is a position that should be as independent as it can be, while it is under and in the town of Ossining and with the supervisor's office. I think that recent past has shown why that should be an independent position. Whether the position is just that they have to follow laws and it's statutorily based. I have a job that's statutorily based. Other people have jobs that are statutorily based, but there are some jobs that should be independent as much as they can be. And I believe that that's one of them. The conversation that was had with regard to the superintendent of highways was that you guys didn't really know what you were going to do. Maybe you were going to appoint somebody. Maybe you were going to take somebody off the road and have them do some of the administration at some point. It wasn't particularly clear. And this conversation about merging these two offices, there may be other municipalities that have done so. I don't believe it's the right thing for this particular town. We are special and different than others. And the way it works is the people who are in charge of the receiver of, and that office know that job, and the people who deal in the clerk's office know that job, and to have one person oversee.
That's 3 minutes.
Well, it's 4.
4 minutes. Okay. Yeah.
So are we doing 4 for all 3? Are we?
Yes. We're doing 4 for all 3. And then everybody can have a chance. And then if we
Okay.
have more time, we'll call people back up again.
All right, no problem. I'll let that be. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Good evening. My name is John Van Steen. I'm a resident at 78 South Highland Avenue here in the village of Ossining. I stand before you currently opposed to local laws 2, 3, and 4. Our current system of elected officials has a number of benefits to the community attached to it, notably that current elected officials receive a salary that is substantially less than those of the civil service positions in adjacent communities, and it's a salary that's very much controllable by the town board and not by civil service agencies. Elected officials, as opposed to appointed officials, have shown themselves to pay closer attention to the community and are more responsive to community requests and issues than are those that are appointed. Additionally, they tend not to look for promotion elsewhere, but are much more loyal to the community as they are personally vested. Our current and previous tax receiver and highway superintendents, as compared to our recent village managers, are examples not only of salary differential, but of responsiveness and loyalty to the community. Abolition of elected officials is the necessary step to the creation of a coterminous village town of Ossining, which I view as a negative for the following reasons. Financially, costs to the taxpayer would be increased. As there are different unions representing the village and town highway departments, a union of these two groups would cause an increase in cost to the higher paid union representing the town and would represent a combined village and town highway department. The town outside residents would lose access to government. Village of Ossining issues would supersede those of the town and would be controlled essentially by the village. With the coterminous Ossining, Regions 6 and 20 would be more likely to become a part of the coterminous Briarcliff. The chaos of the village would now spread to the town unchallenged. Remember, it is the governance policies of the village over the past few years, with its lack of attention to fiscal responsibility and its lack of attention to demographics, that have led to the crushing tax burden and have caused the village of Ossining to be the most heavily taxed community in Westchester County. A separate town board can stand as a barrier to this. Under the current system, town officials should have a greater responsibility to town rather than village issues. This would not be the case with a coterminous Ossining.
Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name's Omar Herrera, 55 Park Avenue. I am here in my role as a Ossining Village trustee to address local law number. Do I go in order? Or can I just go in general? Okay, does it matter?
It doesn't matter because
Okay.
we're hearing about them concurrently.
Okay.
So whatever order you would like.
So I first wanted to clarify the beginning of this. So we heard during your opening remarks that this has been a village and town effort, and I just wanted to clarify because one of my first liaison roles was with working with the town on the Department of State grant that was applied to with village support at the time. An interim village manager, Paul Frioli, was in office, and we had quite a discussion that although we sent a support letter, we were never part of actually developing as two boards what the charter would be, which for those that are watching is a perspective plan or idea that you don't have to follow, but that will ultimately show why you should receive the grant. And it was so specific that it spoke to how the village would merge with the town when it comes to departments and work with it. And we even had a whole discussion on the village board, which could be watched, which is why we ultimately chose not to fully support it and actually chose not to sign the contract for the consultant, which is actually coordinating Project Forward today. Because the village really, yes, we support the ability to apply for money, but not the ability for being told how the municipality would like to work with their co-municipality on how to move forward in possible efficiencies or consolidation. We were kind of told by the town on how that would be when the charter was written. So I just wanted to clarify that because there is a difference and there is a reason why the town moved forward on their own without the village the past couple of months. This is a town-led effort currently. So that's one. Two, it's really the overall opposition about taking people's right away to elect their own leaders during a time where we've had decades, but now more than ever, where residents they don't trust their government, right? They have a lot of trust issues, not just in Ossining, at every level. And now more than ever, to remove their only ability to have a say as to, or an influence as to who could sit in one of these seats or serve in one of these capacities is very troubling, very disappointing. As we're a community that talks about being progressive and expanding opportunity and rights, we should be expanding ways to build and influence and have a larger pool of people that are qualified to run for office, not obstruct it. And the other reason for my opposition is, regardless of whoever is in the town supervisor role, not just this current one, if this passes, I have a big problem with that person, he or she or whatever, being the person that they all have to report to. And that's just troubling because there's a difference in reporting to a full-time elected official versus the general public. You have to respond to an actual boss, right? So there's always going to be potential conflicts and differences. And technically, as we all know, being the boss of someone, you have leverage over them, over their policies, over their budget, over what they do. And that's done behind closed doors because now it's deemed a personnel matter. So the public doesn't even know how certain decisions come to be, whereas right now they can, right? So,
4 minutes.
is it? Thank you.
Quantel Bazemore, Village Trustee in Ossining, 17 Ann Street. A lot of what has already been echoed, I definitely agree with. I want to say, with respects to combining the town clerk and the town assessor, I can tell you from the village
Just for a point of clarification, it's
town
receiver.
town receiver, town receiver, the amount of workload that we give to the town clerk in itself, just our permits alone in the village. I don't necessarily see those two offices coming together. I think when we're talking about modernizing offices and making them more efficient, that is something that people can run on, right? I don't necessarily believe that that's something that you can buy. And finally, Trustee Herrera has really talked about really the consolidation of power. It's problematic when people don't actually have the right to vote on their elected leaders. It's important that when we're talking about how do people know about this. It's not every day that I come to a town of Ossining board meeting, but I would like to see this referendum be pushed just as heavy as if you were actually running for office yourself, meaning you going door to door, knocking on doors saying, hey, do you actually know what the change is going to be? Sending out a letter to town residents and saying, hey, we've done our due diligence. I think it's actually not fair. I think if you were really serious about this, you should hit the pavement. Um, essentially, this is not working. Like, this doesn't work. This doesn't work at all. And to say that we're now moving into November, you had to be pushed to move it to November. There was, there was some idea, there were some thoughts about actually having this done in June. So I really think that you should, if you're very serious about this, you should definitely do an FAQ. Go to the doors, knock, and let people know exactly what you're taking away, because you are taking away their right to vote.
Anybody else? Is there anybody else who has not yet spoken who would like to speak? Going once, going twice. Jeffrey, did you have something that you wanted to continue? You're all set? Okay. Mr. Herrera?
I'll be quick. My last and only point was, and this just may be more of an education for myself, the board, and the public, whenever you guys feel it's appropriate to have a discussion. Right now, we are fortunate to share the office of the clerk and have a discussion as to what the village's role is, if any, with having an appointed clerk versus an elected clerk, and if we're going to have any role within that, because so far we have not had a role in that conversation. So thank you.
So thank you. Is there anybody else? I'm going around one more time. You shy people in the back? Are you changing your mind? Giving you another shot? No? Okay, fantastic. So just a couple of points of clarification. I wanted to, because we have two village trustees who did discuss, come and talk tonight, and I appreciate that and appreciate your perspective. But I just want to add that village, through the intermunicipal working group that we have with the town and the village, was very much a part of the initial discussions that we had. And Mr. Herrera, I don't believe you were on the board at the time. I know that you were elected to the board following that, but you were not actually on the board at the time. And the discussion that we had when we were applying for the shared services grant was that the village was not yet prepared to take the giant leap, but it was to make all of the nitty-gritty decisions of how exactly we were going to consolidate the highway department and the parks department with each other, with one another, and how we would be able to share services among and between the village and the town. But it was agreed that the most efficient way to do that would be to eliminate the office of highway superintendent. And since that came under the town's jurisdiction, that it would make the most sense for the town to go out first and work to that end. And if in fact that was achievable, if that were not achievable, and if the people did not support that, then it was kind of a moot point. It would be very difficult to consolidate these two departments or to share services between these two departments in a way that would have made sense to actually eliminate the administrative costs that were associated with that supervisory position. So that's where the conversation started. That is what the grant was that we applied for. And yes, you were part of the continuing conversations that led the town to take the lead on that project. So I want to be perfectly clear, that is how that happened. I appreciate all of the input as far as just, again, point of clarification. The local law we introduced, we had originally thought that we might have a separate election for this that would stand alone and apart. But because of the cost involved, we thought it would be more efficient to gang it up with another election. The first opportunity that we saw that would have been June, since we had a primary election and we weren't trying to disenfranchise voters. We were trying to make sure that people could vote at a time when they were used to voting or would be ready to vote. But we did get public input, and we responded to that public input. And in responding to that public input, we pushed the election back to November, and we thought it was a good suggestion. And we also found out that, you know, that even if we were to hold the election concurrently with the election for the offices of clerk and highway superintendent, even so, should the public choose to eliminate those elected offices, that would go into effect in immediately, I believe, or as soon as it was designated in the local law, which in this case would be in January. So again, you know, when we just decided to push it back, we wanted to make sure that we had the correct information that would make sense with the local laws that were being put forth. And once again, I just remind everybody that you have the opportunity to vote. This is a referendum. It's not something that the board is deciding. The board is merely offering this as an opportunity for the people to weigh in. With that, yes,
I would like to.
okay.
Anyway, I was going to go off. One of the things I was going to say is that, well, I see good and bad. I'm mixed on a couple of the offices. But the positive for having them be appointed is that they will be moving pieces. And if we're looking at trying to merge highway departments, even if we're not a coterminous village town, looking at where we can share more services, we're sharing in a lot of areas. Having moving pieces that we can work together and share makes more sense. We do have our very popular highway superintendent and our very popular tax receiver retiring. So this is a unique point in time where it's an opportunity where there's not someone who's beloved in the position, so it makes more sense to see if it's something that the public wants. I personally am not seeing that our tax office and our clerk office would work at this time, if at all, as a merged office. It's a continuing conversation. I believe that when we modernize, and that's a huge undertaking that we're looking at, and we're doing, I mean, something as simple as getting online services for a lot of the things that they offer. It's a huge lift, and our departments is already starting to look at it. And until we get it modernized, it's really, to me, doesn't make sense to merge them. I understand that the salary of a person who's elected is often lower than the salary of a person, but if there could be just one head person, that's how you would realize some savings. So it's a continuing conversation. The idea is to be able to have the moving pieces to try to find the cost savings and the cutting, everything else. One thing to your point, Omar, we are already, the town is responsible for the budget of the clerk and the tax office. That's just part of how it all works. So their budget is already dependent on, you know, how we all work the budget together. We are not responsible for the policies or laws that dictate what goes on with those offices. Those are laws that come down from New York State. There are very specific tax laws. I mean, the tax receiver is responsible for every penny that they get. They need to be bonded. And there are so many particular tax laws. You know, you can't take it a day late, it has to be stamped. There's a lot of real important tax laws, and they have to follow each and every one of them. And, you know, we've been really fortunate and to have really great people in that office. You can't always find a rocket scientist when you need one, And remember, Holly, who's doing an amazing job, was appointed first and then ran for her office. So, you know, we were able to find the skills that we needed and thought would fit. And then people agreed with us when she was elected. So it's not always a bad thing. I think that's a lot of what I wanted to say. Anyway, the main thing is, even if I'm not sold that this is always the best idea, what I do agree with my colleagues on is that it should be left up to the people. I mean, there's enough different opinions and conversations on, you know, where I think the direction should go and where other members of the board think the direction should go, and they can all speak for themselves. But the thing is, this is a referendum, and this is for the people to decide what they want. I welcome any and all ideas on Quantel. I love you. I don't have enough time to knock on every door. I'm going to knock on as many as I can. I'll absolutely be talking about it during my campaign, but really that's not logistically a possibility for me. But if you have other ideas on outreach that we could do in a financially responsible way, love to hear them. But one of the reasons we did push it off, and I'm really in favor of that, is so we have more time for a continuing conversation. And we have until November for everybody to talk to each other, hear about it, and decide where you stand and what is the right thing that you think is the right thing. And then it's up to the people. It's not our decision. So that's what I wanted to say tonight.
I'm actually in the unincorporated town, I guess the only one on the board now, and I have talked to some of my neighbors. I haven't gone door to door, but I have talked to some of my neighbors. The biggest feedback that I get is on the highway, and it's, you know, how will that affect my snow removal, which is a big deal for us in unincorporated, and snow and leaves. And that's the biggest question I normally get. I don't think, for the most part, people are that interested one way or the other. I don't think most people know much about what goes on in local government, at least in the unincorporated town. The village is much more involved from what I've seen, just being on this side and on that side. But I have talked to some people, and yes, we could do better about getting the word out, and we have to think about how we do that. I think that is good feedback. Door to door, probably not, but I think we could do more than we're doing. So that's something that I'm taking away from this. So thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, a couple of things. I am for positions being appointed, and the reason I'm for it because you're not in our work session. You don't know what problems that some of these people give you when you need something done, or how they rebel and what they are about. And you do not have any power over the elected officials. If they're elected, they can go on and do exactly as they want to do, which I'm here to tell you I've seen a lot of it. And it's not necessarily a good thing. Now, I can understand you saying the public needs to be able to vote on it. Now that's I don't know. I just know that if you're appointed, you have to answer to somebody other than the public. And you know, somebody has to be in charge, whether you like them or don't like them. But I have seen a lot of very, very bad things done. And and some of the people do not or will not or would not listen to what was being told or asked of them to do. Now, I'm not saying that
Just to clarify, you mean when you say ask for them to do, you're saying so that they could efficiently
yes,
do
so
their
they could
job
be efficiently
and
doing
answer
that
to
job.
what the responsibilities of
Right.
the town are.
That's
Not
all.
just any old.
No, I don't
I'm just
care
saying
about
not,
any old
not,
thing.
no, because I mean, a lot of, again, it's what we're seeing on social media is people think that, that the town board would be asking favors or asking people to do things that are not
No.
right, but you're kind of saying the opposite. I
Yeah,
just
I'm
want to,
talking. I'm speaking mainly of what. Let's just say from your office, you're asked to do something that's what should be done. And that's what I'm mainly
But again,
saying.
when you say, I mean, again, can you just give an example? Can you give an example? You give an example.
No, I will not
Okay,
give an example.
Okay, well,
because
okay,
that
okay. I know you don't want to give
can
an example, but,
indicate too many people.
but again, okay, so, but I think what you're trying to say, just to be, again, clarify again, I think you're not saying that the supervisor's office is out asking these other elected offices to do things that are untoward or not right.
No, I'm
You're
not.
suggesting that they're asking them to do their jobs.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Doing
sure,
your job. Not,
just to clarify.
what are you going to be out asking them to do?
There's a lot of people out there who are asking them to do things that are not correct. That are
Oh,
not
well,
right.
I've seen that happen too. I've seen some of them, they were not asked, they just did it. I mean, some of our not officials, the workers. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody that they have to answer to make them do the job properly that they're supposed to do.
It is true that an elected position just, conceivably I could decide not to show up and there's really nothing anybody can do about it, which is not something I'm ever going to do. Sorry, it's not that easy for you people. But, legally, there's really nothing anybody can do to compel me or not easily to get, to stop somebody who isn't necessarily showing up, doing their job or whatever. I don't have Mr. Wiltshire's experience, but that would be an example of, if I decide to go on a vacation for a year, there's really not a lot you could do with that. But if I was appointed, in theory, there would be something that would.
Right. So I'm just going to clarify again that and I know I'm just playing devil's advocate. What can happen is the people can then vote that person out. A lot of times people aren't aware when somebody's not coming in every day. They just know, again, many of these offices, all of our offices really function, without an administrator and oversight in place. They're going to continue to function. This person comes in, that person goes. So again, this is an opportunity for us to look at how those administrative positions are being utilized and how they can be utilized to the best of the public's ability. So Mr. Wiltshire, I think, articulated some. And interestingly, we do have 2 village trustees here, and I would just like to also add that the village did decide to get rid of the elected office of collector/treasurer back in the late 80s, I believe. Late 80s, early 90s. I think Cadoza Worthy was the last elected treasurer, and that was specifically because they wanted to professionalize the office, and there was a referendum, I believe it was a 3-to-1 vote that supported getting rid of that elected office. Again, we have other neighboring municipalities. We have down in Newcastle who has a joint clerk and receiver in one office, and have town of Cortland who had gotten rid of their elected highway superintendent and put in Department of Public Works. And obviously we used to have an elected assessor and a couple of other interesting elected offices. And none of those elected offices hold regular meetings, but the town board does hold regular meetings. When recently we had an opportunity to talk about McCarthy Road, because it had been brought to the attention of the town board that McCarthy Road was perhaps should have been designated a town road. The people who lived on McCarthy Road who wanted to come talk about what the road would look like came to our town board meetings, and they talked to the town board, their elected board. So we have been elected by the people to make sure that we carry out the work of the town, and I know that we will continue to do that no matter what the results of this election are. But again, that is going to be up to the people in November. Anything else? All right. No, we're now going to close the public hearing until we're going to adjourn the public hearing.
public hearing
Right.
to be continued.
Exactly. So we're going to adjourn the public hearing, so you will have another opportunity. And the next opportunity that we're going to have,
It depends on if you want to do it at your next legislative session or give some time to get the FAQs out and circulate that, and wait until your second legislative session. I believe it's either the June 11th or June 25th.
okay. So I think that what we'll do is, actually, you know what? I'm sorry, Ms. Jeffrey, if you want to come up, come on up, okay?
I'm a little concerned because during public hearings, usually the board doesn't speak. Then you all had something to say, and now you're not letting the public respond. So that seems strange to me. Number one, you asked for suggestions on how to get the word out, and Council Member Shaw said that she did appreciate to hear it. And my suggestion was that maybe you follow the playbook that the former town supervisor and the assessor of taxes did in terms of how did they reach out to specific
Which
or
we appreciate, and I
generalized.
think we will take you up on that. Sure.
Okay. The second thing is, with respect to and I do understand what we're talking about, but with respect to the fact that we have elected officials who were elected by the people to do a job, there was never a complaint. I shouldn't say never. We should never say never. There were few complaints by the public about the receiver of taxes office in terms of generalized long-term. We didn't have, complaints that nobody was doing their job, that we couldn't get our taxes paid. If I heard a few, I heard very little. So while there might be tensions between a town board and the supervisor's office and other elected officials, that by itself to me does not seem to be the reason to then abolish so that the people cannot elect those officials. Tension is part of the process, and answering to the people is something that most of the time the residents like. And to what Councilwoman Shaw had said is, it's not just about removing or having these beloved people leave. And so now, hopefully the people are going to say, yeah, that's fine. I don't care. In the unincorporated town, the highway department is king. How the roads are plowed, how, what kind of services they get, that's huge. And yes, it was connected partly to who the superintendent of highway was, but it isn't. It's connected to the whole highway, and the autonomy of that office is a very big deal. So those are just the things I wanted to say at the time, and I thank you for giving me time to respond.
So, can you come up to the?
So the grant was for $10,000. No? 22.5. Okay. And a portion of that or all of that was to help us with the outreach, right? The funding.
Absolutely.
So I guess I'm concerned because we're at this stage so close to the election, and we clearly know that we haven't reached everyone effectively. What has the funding been used for? I mean, one of the main reasons I had an issue with the consultant that you guys hired, and I'm so glad the village did not sign on with you, is it was you needed an outside entity that had the capacity of time and resources and talent to help you communicate and outreach more than you as electeds can do, that are part-time. That's why you hired them. So I'm a little concerned about what they did, what the state's grant paid for. Is the entire 22 for PR? What was the budget? Is it enough? And how do you actually start a real community outreach campaign now, so late in the game? And how do you measure it, right? How do you know that it's actually working? How does the state know that their money was actually effectively used to get the public buy-in for a project that we say we support? Thank you.
I don't think it's that late in the process.
Okay, so number one, we did hire a consultant, and I'm pretty sure all of those, all the approvals for the amounts that we spent were all vetted at public meetings, just like we always do. So they were always before the public to comment on at any time that we have a public meeting. Those amounts of money that were spent on the consultant were approved by the town board, and the public always has an opportunity to comment. So what the consultant was hired to do was to develop a campaign to do outreach to the public, which they did. There was a postcard, as was referenced earlier by somebody, that was sent out to everybody in the town general. We did get responses. I personally went to somebody's door who said that they don't utilize a computer, but they received a postcard in the mail and they wanted to respond. And I went and picked up their response, and we logged it in to all of the responses. So people did call, they emailed, and they answered an online survey. Following that, we published a website, the Project Forward 2, and we continued to do outreach. We had informational sessions. We had multiple town meetings, just like we always do. And we are going to continue, as I mentioned, we'll be putting up an FAQ to address some of the new information that has been up on some of the social media, to talk about some of the different questions that people have and to address some of those more specifically. So we continue to engage with our consultant, and he also has the ability to watch our town meetings, to read any of the public hearing notes, and to help us so that we can get the message out as best we can. So we will continue to do that, and we appreciate all the input and suggestions for additional public outreach, and we will make sure that we hit as many of those venues as we can. And I am happy to take the opportunity when I go door to door to speak to people about that during my campaign, as well as anybody else who I might be out there for. So that would be an opportunity certainly to talk to people, and I will take that. I will take the opportunity to do so. Is there anything else that anybody else wants to add? Counsel, did you want to add something? No? Okay. So with that, I ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing on local laws 2, 3, and 4 to June 25th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Right. Next up, local law number 5 of 2019.
Energize New York Open Space Financing Program.
Okay, so, Counsel Donna, would you like to speak?
So this has been before the board for a few months now. And basically we were at the point where the local law has been made public. We were just going back and forth with EIC, which is going to be administering the program, to have a little bit of a better understanding of what was going to be required of the municipalities in terms of municipalities being indemnified for participating in this process.
Can I just take one quick little step back just to make sure that everybody understands? CPACE is another program offered through Energize, or the Energy Improvement Corporation, to municipalities to find ways that that commercial and not-for-profits can have an opportunity to make energy improvements to their building infrastructures. Most of it is for redoing building infrastructures. We have had these opportunities for many years, but Energize has come up with new ways to make the municipalities bear less of the risk, and at Energize bear more of the risk, as well as the lenders bear the most of the risk. So it's a way for people to borrow against their energy savings, not people, but commercial properties and not-for-profits, to borrow against the energy savings that they will realize by making the energy improvements. So again, Energize has asked all of their municipalities to consider adopting CPACE legislation, which would make it less burdensome for municipalities to offer this program to commercial and not-for-profit entities.
Sorry, I was just
That's
picking up
okay.
where we left off, but
Yep.
thank you. Yeah, so we had communications with EICs, who's, like I said, is going to be administering the program on behalf of all of the member municipalities. And we were talking to them about how it would work in practice in terms of protecting EIC and the municipality from any risks associated with engaging in the lending. And the understanding is that the borrower will be responsible as part of the lending agreement to indemnify both EIC and the municipality for any litigation that arises out of or in connection with the law or the lending of the money, because they're the ones that will benefit from it. And so those were just the last issues that we were trying to work out, and it seems that they've been resolved. So if the board wanted to close the public hearing, if you wanted to leave it open again, it's up to your discretion, but those were the outstanding items that we were waiting to have addressed.
Is there anybody here to address the public on CPACE? Going once, twice? Anybody on the board have anything? Okay, with that, I'd like to motion to close the public hearing on CPACE local law number 5 of 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And finally, local law number 6 of 2019.
Establishing the position of alternate for the town's land use boards.
So we have 3 land use boards. We have the planning board, the zoning board of appeals, and we also have the architectural review board. And originally we had just been looking at appointing an alternate for one of the boards, but then we realized that we thought it would be our best practice to allow us to have alternates for all of those boards. The way that it's drafted is the alternates would basically be at all of the meetings, and then they would have an opportunity to vote if one of the board members is not available. Is there anybody here to comment on local law number 6 of 2019, alternate for towns land use boards? Going once, going twice. Counsel?
So I think we had a discussion about possibly just putting this on for a work session for the town board to just discuss the language and make sure that there weren't any changes that needed to be made. So if you wanted to put that on for your work session next week and then adjourn it to June 11th, and then depending upon what comments, if any, the board has, you can assess at that point whether you would feel comfortable closing the public hearing. But the comments that we've received from the land use boards all seem to be considerably in favor of it. As the supervisor said, one of the concerns would be if someone just showed up, if someone was absent, so that you didn't have the continuity of them being familiar with the applications, especially applications that the planning board or the architectural review board, which do sit as the same members, would have for for a larger development project. So with the goal of having them attend every meeting and be able to participate and speak and pretty much have the same function of the other board members, but for the fact that they can only vote if there is not a full complement of the board, seem to be something that the land use boards currently are in favor of. So just another thing to mention.
And the town board who happy to be discussing this at our next session? That, or
I'm
would
in
you like
favor
to
of it. I'm happy to talk about it if you want.
close the public hearing on and?
Well,
I mean, the land boards are in favor of it, as far as I can tell. I'm happy that there would be somebody else sit in. So I'm okay closing the public hearing, but I don't know if the public. We can leave it open one more time.
I would just say if the board is going to discuss it at a work session, there is the possibility that there would be some changes, even minor ones. I would recommend leaving it open until June 11th. But if the board's comfortable with the language as drafted,
That was my question, and I
Okay.
thought that I was getting the impression
That's comfortable.
that we didn't need to have a work session on this.
Yeah, I'm
I thought
comfortable
we'd
too.
already took care of it.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, so, can I have a motion to close the public hearing on local law number 6 of 2019?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, and we don't have to adopt it. We can adopt it at our next meeting. Okay. All right. So with that,
We'll move into our announcements this evening.
Okay, so I have a few announcements and breaking news right out of the gate. Our appointed assessor, Fernando Gonzalez, informed us just prior to the end of today that his office has completed the process to prepare the 2019 assessment roll and that 2,965 change of assessment notices went out in the mail today, which was down from what they expected to send out and considerably down from last year. 2,546 parcels increased and 419 parcels received reductions for a townwide average of a 1% increase in residential value. There was an approximately $86 million increase in taxable assessed value townwide, 45 million of which is attributable to the club at Briarcliff Manor, a senior living community that is partially completed. Last week, it was brought to my attention by both our assessor and receiver of taxes that they had received many phone calls and inquiries from people who are confused about changes that New York State has made to the STAR program this year. I asked our assessor, Fernando Gonzalez, if he could prepare something that might easily sum up what those who receive basic STAR need to know, and he prepared this summary, which I think I shared last week and in my Friday update, and I'm going to do it again as the deadline is approaching on June 1st. To update your STAR status locally with the assessor. So here we go one more time. Changes to STAR reduce the income limit for the basic STAR exemption credit on your property tax bill to $250,000. Anyone earning between $250,000 and $500,000 a year will receive a check for their STAR instead of the exemption on the school tax bill. Homeowners receiving the STAR credit in the form of a check will have the possibility of seeing their credit increase up to 2% annually, whereas those who decide to stay in the exemption credit program will have that exemption frozen at this year's levels. The income limit for the basic STAR credit remains at $500,000. Enhanced STAR for over 65-year-olds recipients should have already enrolled in the income verification program with the state. The state is trying to incentivize property owners to move to receive the credit check instead of the tax bill exemption by floating the possibility of receiving up to a 2% annual increase in your STAR credit check versus no increase in your exemption. It would be frozen. In order to move to the check, homeowners must notify the assessor's office to withdraw the STAR exemption in writing or via email at assessor@townofaustining.com by June 1st, 2019. Register for the STAR credit with the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance at 518-457-2036 or online at www.tax.ny.gov/STAR. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to participate in 2 Memorial Day ceremonies, one in Ossining and one in Briarcliff. These annual events are always so moving and help our communities to pause and remember those that have given everything in service to our country. We want to thank Ossining American Legion Post 506, Briarcliff American Legion Post 1054, and Ossining Volunteer Fire Department, as well as the Village of Ossining Parks Department and all the other organizations that helped to put together this year's remembrance ceremonies. The Lewis Engel Spray Park is officially open for the season. Come down to Engel Park to cool down on weekends until school closes for the summer from 12 to 7 p.m. and then after school closes every day until Labor Day. This season, we're debuting our new splash pad thanks to a $100,000 grant from Senator David Carlucci. We're hoping to have an official ribbon cutting sometime this summer on a weekday when school is out, so stay tuned. Leaf blower legislation goes into effect on May 31st in the town and the village. On our website, we have posted a snapshot of the town's legislation in both English and Spanish and a link to the full law, but here are the highlights. From May 31st to September 30th of each year, gas-powered leaf blowers are prohibited except in cemetery properties and on pavement when operated at half speed. During emergencies like storms, when the town supervisor may declare a temporary moratorium, and with a temporary permit granted by our building inspector for a period not to exceed 7 days. We are either the 15th or 16th municipality in Westchester to adopt this type of seasonal prohibition in an effort to improve quality of life for those who operate these machines. One local garden store owner actually let me know he had major hearing loss from operating these machines for so many years, and he was grateful for the change. Those in the vicinity of machines being operated, as well as to improve air quality and do our part to combat climate change. Did you know that Babe Ruth once played baseball in Ossining? In 1929, Babe Ruth and the New York Yankees played an exhibition game against the prison baseball team, the Black Sheep, and hit 3 home runs, one of which just might be the longest run ever hit, according to baseball lore and confirmed by Westchester Magazine. On Thursday night, May 30th, from 7 to 9 p.m., learn more about this fascinating piece of Ossining history with the showing of the new documentary, Babe Ruth at Sing Sing, at the Ossining Public Library. This weekend, there will be quite a few opportunities to catch some great music with an open mic night at Mike Risco Music on Thursday evening, May 30th at 8 p.m., and local favorite, the Old Mill Singers, Friday, May 31st, and Saturday, June 1st at 8 p.m. at the Clearview School. The open mic night at the Riscos is free. Sign up at the door with 1 or 2 songs per act. Tickets for the Old Mill Singers are $15, $12 for seniors, and $5 for children. Also on Saturday, June 1st, get your tickets for the continuation of Westchester Collaborative Theater's Jazz Master Series with internationally known and Grammy-nominated musician Enrique Haneni. His unique jazz style, influenced by Latin and Lebanese traditions, is sure to bring a crowd to both sets at 7:30 and 9 p.m. Enrique has performed alongside some of the greatest jazz musicians of all time. Thank you to WCT for bringing him to Ossining. Buy your tickets in advance at wctheater.org. Be sure to check out Theater O's elementary school production of the play based on the classic children's novel A Wrinkle in Time. We know Theater O always helps kids bring their own special touch to all their productions, so you won't want to miss this one. Performances begin on Thursday, May 30th and continue on the 31st and June 1st and will take place at the Bethany Arts Community on Somerstown Road at 7 p.m. Tickets are $10 each. Purchase them in advance at theaterO.org. The Ossining Documentary and Discussion Series June offering will be Trans-Military. We'll look into the lives of 4 transgender individuals serving in the U.S. military who must conceal their gender identity in order to serve their nation on Thursday, June 6th at 6:30 p.m. at the Ossining Public Library's Boudars Theater. Make sure not to miss this thoughtful program, which will include an expert panel after the film. And save the date for the 39th Annual Ossining Village Fair, just a few weeks away, on Saturday, June 8th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I believe that Sunday is the rain date. The town will be well represented by our Environmental Advisory Committee, Green Ossining, the Cedar Lane Arts Center, and Forest of Fears Haunted Attraction, each with their own booth this year. If you're looking for some fun new activities to try out this summer, there are some great local options from some of the organizations just mentioned. Westchester Collaborative Theater's got acting classes starting up next week with improvisation for theater and for fun, Jim Brownald, and scene and monologue study with Bob Rogerson. And don't worry, these classes are not just for professional actors. Learn more and register at wctheater.org/classes. Also, Ossining Recreation and Hudson Valley Guides will be holding several kayaking programs launching from Lewis Engle Park Beach this summer, including sunset kayaks on Friday evenings to coincide with the summer concert series. Kayaks and gear will be provided to participants. Check out the recreation catalog on the town or village website for more information and registration. And that's it for my announcements. Does anybody else?
Ossining Live is Friday the 31st. I believe it starts at 6. I want to say in the gym.
Not outside.
I believe it's inside this year.
Okay. 6 o'clock.
31st.
31st.
Friday
the 31st. Okay. Fantastic. Anything else? All right. With that, liaison reports. Are there any?
I want to congratulate the Mid-Hudson Ambulance District on reaching their 10th anniversary. They had a gala honoring some really amazing people who formed the Mid-Hudson Ambulance District and saved OVAC from going broke. So, Dr. Seebacher, Dr. Nigro, Richard Wishney, were all some of the very people who helped form this alliance that keeps our community and residents safe. Our response time is amazing and continues to get better all the time with the ingenuity of our chief, Nick Franzoso, who was also honored. They're an amazing, well-run organization that does so much for our community. So I just wanted to congratulate them on their 10th anniversary. And I believe last week was National Emergency Response
EMS week. Yes.
EMS week. So it was very fitting to honor them on that time.
Absolutely. And also, you did also have an opportunity to attend the memorial breakfast with the
I
fire
was
department?
able to attend the Ossining Fire Department's annual memorial breakfast. A lot of they they honor the lives of the first responders and the firemen that were lost over the year. We lost a lot of good people this year, so it's a little heartbreaking for me. Some of them were really close, including Mario Conti and Wizard and Al. I mean, it just
Al Ross.
yeah, Al Ross. I mean, and Counsel also. So just there were a lot, and I mean it was a rough. That one was hard for me because so many of the people that were lost this year meant a lot to me. But they do this every year, and they go to the grave, the 3 different cemeteries, and say prayers in honor all of the fallen at Dale, at St. Augustine's, and at the Jewish cemetery. It's a really moving ceremony, and it's an honor to be a part of that, be able to attend that.
Moving right along.
No other liaison reports?
We have no departmental reports this evening. And now we're up to public comments on agenda items. Is there anybody here to comment on any of the agenda items on? Okay. Hearing none. We will move right along into board resolutions.
Okay. So the first resolution, approval of minutes, regular meeting, May 14, 2019. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the May 14, 2019 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Actually, I
I can't
believe-
second it.
I believe Councilwoman Feldman was
the other
Okay,
not
sorry.
here for that
Second.
meeting.
Still could second it. Really can. But you can abstain. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention.
Letter B, approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated May 28, 2019, the amount of $438,628.30.
Do you have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Letter C, calling for a public hearing in the matter of community development block grant CDBG applications 2019 to 2021. Resolved that the town board of town of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, June 11, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. at the Birdsall Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York 10562, in the matter of the submissions of the 2019-2021 Community Development Block Grant Program through the Westchester Urban County Consortium.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So last year we submitted 4 applications to Westchester County for community development block grant funding for the 3-year cycle covering fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2021. We were so pleased to learn that we are going to be receiving $75,000 to support the purchase of a new electric bus for the senior nutrition program, and we really do need it. When we submitted our applications for 2020 and 2021 last year to help fund projects in our senior nutrition program, to overhaul the kitchen in the facility that is in the community center and at Lewis Engle Park, the applications were more like placeholders because the county gives us an opportunity to update our applications each year. Now that we have refined our vision and budget for the upcoming fiscal years, we need to hold a public hearing in advance of the June 28th deadline on our 2020 and 2021 applications to get some feedback from the public on the projects that we are proposing. So all those in favor of calling for the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Letter D, resolution local waterfront revitalization plan consultant. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby accepts the proposal provided by LaBerge Group for Computer Drive West, Albany, New York 12205 for the completion of the grant application for the development of a local waterfront revitalization program and the Lewis Engle Waterfront Park Master Plan. And be it further resolved that the town of Ossining that the town board of the town of Ossining authorizes the supervisor to sign any agreements or documents associated with the preparation of a grant application to the New York State Department of State for funds to develop an LWRP subject to the approval of council of the town as to form.
Do I have a motion?
We'll move.
Second.
A few weeks ago, the town board issued a request for qualifications for the completion of a grant application and work plan for the town to develop a local waterfront revitalization plan. We received a couple of very qualified proposals and have ultimately selected LaBerge Group. We look forward to working with LaBerge as we prepare a submission to the New York State Department of State's LWRP grant program as part of the consolidated funding application due in July. Comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Letter E, appointment town board. Resolve the town board of the town of Ossining hereby appoints Gregory Mayer Ossining to the town board of the town of Ossining for a remainder of the 4-year term left vacant by elected town councilwoman Karen D. DeTore, effective June 25th, 2019, at an annual prorated salary of $11,507.
Do I have a motion?
We'll move.
Second.
So I am so very excited to pass this resolution tonight. Back in late 2017, when Councilwoman Kim Jeffrey resigned from her spot on the board, we posted for resumes to fill the first year of her new term. We interviewed many outstanding candidates and chose to appoint Councilwoman Jackie Shaw, who we all know was a wonderful choice. We did, however, have other true, and the public did agree with us when they voted her into office following that for the remainder of the term. We did, however, have other truly outstanding candidates who we did not select at the time. However, one of whom, Greg Meyer, would have been quite the catch. His experience, poise, and enthusiasm for Ossining was hard to pass up. Greg is an attorney. He volunteers and has held leadership positions with the Lions Club, currently serves on the village zoning board, which he would have to step down from. He has worked in the state and county government for a good many years, and he still is working in the state government. We were thrilled when Greg threw his hat in the ring to run for town board in 2020, when Councilwoman DeTore chose not to run for re-election. We believe this is a great opportunity for him to have a jump start on the position. He will remain on the November ballot. This appointment will allow him to serve from the end of June through the end of 2019 in Councilwoman DeTore's spot since she resigned the remainder of her term. Any comments? Great. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Letter F, resolution approving Lewis Engle Park stage application for LNAO. Whereas the town's Lewis Engle Waterfront Park has a stage that the town rents out to the public for concerts and other events, and whereas the town has received an application from Brian Johnson of the organization LNAO, Losing Not an Option, the applicant, to hold a music festival consisting of several artists on July 27, 2019. And whereas the applicant has held music festivals at the Lewis Engle Park stage in the past, and the town has received multiple complaints alleging excessive volume and cursing in the music. And whereas the stage is located in a park where families and children congregate, and there are several residential developments nearby. The town has an obligation to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and whereas the applicant has offered certain mitigation measures to alleviate any concerns and reduce any potential impacts to the public. Specifically, 1, reducing the hours from 1 through 10 p.m. to 3 through 9 p.m., 2, no tolerance policy for cursing by artists, which will be effectuated by the applicant reaching out to each artist management team in advance and requesting the lyrics and music 1 week in advance of the festival. 3, turning the speakers inward instead of outward toward the residential developments. 4, have a group of volunteers for security to keep the space clean during the event and to clean up after the event. Whereas in light of the efforts being proposed and agreed to by the applicant, the town board is willing to grant the application with the understanding that the town will monitor the event and assess if the mitigation measures were effective. And now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby approves the applicant's application to hold music festival at Lewis Engle Park stage between the hours of 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. on July 27, 2019, subject to the applicant adhering to the 4 conditions outlined above and the terms in the permit issued by the Ossining Parks and Recreation Department. And be it further resolved that the granting of this application does not bind the town to any future action or set any precedent with respect to the applicant or concerts the Lewis Engle Park stage generally, and the town board will continue to assess each application on a case-by-case basis.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
So, Mr. Johnson has been hosting this event in our public parks, not just in the town, but also in the village before that. Under his organization, Losing is Not an Option, to inspire what he believes is an underserved population to have a day of positive messaging, camaraderie, music, food, and fun. Board has it before us to agree tonight to let him use Engle Park again in July with some specific special measures that Mr. Johnson has proposed to take to help make the event even more positive for the neighbors. Without further ado, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So much.
I would like to say that I've been to it the last couple of years, at least during the day, and it's a great family event. Some of my friends, they have the kids there, they have the grandkids there, and it's a great community event. Unfortunately, some of the artists did choose, and I'd see Mr. Johnson came up with these guidelines on his own, so I find that helpful. And hopefully it could be another great day for all the families again.
Letter G, Contract Affordable Care Act Reporting 2019 to 2021. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby authorizes the supervisor to enter into a contract with Corporate Plans, Inc., doing business as CPI HR PO Box 293, Syracuse, New York 13214, and with corporate offices at 6830 Cochrane Road, Solon, Ohio 44139, for consulting services in connection with Employee Benefits Administration under the Affordable Care Act, effective April 15, 2019 through April 14, 2021, at a fee not to exceed $8,075 per year, subject to approval by council to the town as to form.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So we're happy to sign yet another contract with CPI HR, as they have been invaluable to us since the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. Special thanks to Principals Mike Grinnell and Kirsten Tudman, keeping us organized and in compliance with federal regulations, as well as doing all of that paperwork on our behalf. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Letter H, calling for a public hearing considering resolution to become suburban town. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, June 11, 2019, at the Birdsall Fagan Police Court Facility located at 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York 10562, to consider a resolution subject to permissive referendum for the Town of Ossining to become a suburban town as defined in Article 3-A of New York Town Law, and have the provisions of Article 3-A of New York Town Law be made applicable to the town.
Do we have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Council Adana, would you like to?
So there's a separate article of New York State town law which identifies certain municipalities that are eligible to become designate themselves as a suburban town. Cortland's done it. It requires a population of 25,000 or more. And if you do satisfy that and adopt a resolution, that in and of itself doesn't actually do anything, but there are some provisions in that article that govern the way that, I guess, government is organized and the town board's authority to appoint certain positions that may be beneficial for the town board to be able to utilize going forward, especially in light of the lengthy discussion you had earlier today regarding elective and appointive positions. But it is passed down by the state legislature, and all it does is give the town board additional options in terms of how things are organized. And if the town board, this is just for the purpose of scheduling the public hearing, but I was going to see if the town board would be interested in having a work session on this next week to go into a little bit more detail about what the law actually discusses. This is just really an administrative process for calling for the public hearing in order to get the move forward.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention?
Abstain.
Okay. So again, this is just to start the process. We appreciate attention brought to the board by council for this, and look forward to a lengthy discussion at a work session. With that, John, correspondence to be received and filed. Have none. Monthly reports, also none. And finally, visitor recognition. Is there anybody here to address the board on anything whatsoever? Have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Town Supervisor and board members. My name is Marissa Caruso. By now, you should all be familiar with the name because each of you has received at least 2 email communications from me over the course of the past few months. I come before you this evening because attempts to engage this board in meaningful dialogue over future development, redevelopment, and the proposed zoning change for 40 Croton Dam Road, known as Stony Lodge or River Knoll Project, have gone ignored. I must also note that I'm not the only resident who has unsuccessfully attempted to engage this board on this matter. Those requests have also gone ignored. On February 15th, I transmitted a 3-page letter to this board requesting that you convene a meeting on this matter for concerned neighbors and residents. After allowing what I felt was adequate time for you to at least acknowledge my letter, I emailed each of you again on March 29th to follow up and confirm receipt. Finding email to be unsuccessful on or about April 5th, I followed up with a telephone call to Supervisor Levenberg's office, which also went ignored. Not one of you had the decent courtesy to give even a simple acknowledgement of receipt of my letter, so here I stand before you. I find it incredibly discourteous, unprofessional, and rude to ignore your residents. As supervisor and council members, you cannot stick your head in the sand and ignore town residents when you may not like what they have to say. If that is the case, then you should not be in elective office. Perhaps that may even be the motivation for wanting to abolish elected positions so you can appoint people who will do the town board's bidding without having to answer to the voting public. The developer for Stony Lodge River Knoll project has been given at least 2 occasions to publicly address this board. How is it that the developer is entitled to deference from the town board and the neighbors are not? Is it because a former town official is representing the developer? Rumors abound the community has become increasingly concerned about backroom deals and frustrated with the lack of transparency and concern of this board for the residents of the town of Ossining. To that end, I raised the serious concern highlighted in my letter of February 15th that this town board, the planning board, and developer have failed to address throughout this entire process. I submit to this board that one single sentence inserted into a so-called comprehensive plan update regarding the Stony Lodge River Knoll project is simply not enough to defeat what is blatant spot zoning. This sentence was only included in the comp plan after Stony Lodge petitioned this board for a zoning change. There has been absolutely no meaningful discussions or analysis of shoehorning this project and multifamily zone district in the middle of a single-family residential zone. It is illegal and incompatible with the town comprehensive plan. We have waited patiently for this important subject to be addressed. This subject was raised to this board over 3 years ago. We are here tonight to renew our request to have this board schedule a meeting where we can have an open and meaningful discussion without having us shut out of the process. We will not be silenced on this matter. This board can schedule any meeting provided it is properly and duly noticed. We request that this board make it a priority to schedule a meeting so we can be heard as soon as possible. We as residents deserve it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roger Bhattacharya. I reside at 16 Holbrook Road in Briarcliff Manor. I am here today echoing the concerns of Ms. Caruso, who was just speaking before me. We had the same issue happen in Briarcliff Manor, where we had Ridgewood Partners who bought the property of Phillips Research Lab, that was formerly known as. They came in and decided they were going to do a massive change to our comprehensive plan, working with Mayor Lori Sullivan in very secretive meetings, doing all of the different changes that they did. And we went in just the same exact way that Ms. Caruso came in to appeal before you. And we got the same response, dead silence. That dead silence resulted in a grassroots uprising. Mayor Sullivan is no longer mayor, and her trustees are gone. Now we have people that are in office that care about protecting and preserving our village. We're asking that we have protection and preservation of our town, not haphazard building. This is exactly what we're railing against. I will join forces with Ms. Caruso and have Briarcliff Manor behind this. Thank you.
Anybody else here? Public comment? Is there recognition on any subject whatsoever?
Gave us time to talk about agenda items, but I hadn't actually read it all. And this last thing about calling for a public hearing considering resolution to become a suburban town. I mean, I guess at the public hearing, you'll explain to us what a suburban town is.
And at the work session next week.
Okay, so the work session will.
I mean, it'll be. I'm sure we'll do it at both, but yeah,
Next
this
week
is
at the
just
work.
scheduling the public hearing.
No, perfect. So there's a work session next week that you guys will be talking about this. Okay, thank you. And I think when you let me come back, I don't know that you finished talking about when you were, when the next date was for the public hearing for the resolutions, the public hearing, the local laws.
The board voted to adjourn to June 25th.
Okay, thank you.
The town board is an involved agency for the purposes of the River Knoll application. And as currently proposed, it would require a zone change. And as contemplated in the environmental impact statement that's been drafted so far, the DEIS, it would require, or what's being contemplated is an amendment to the comprehensive plan. So as part of that process, the town board will have to hold public hearings as a matter of law in order to hear from the public and have the public weigh in before considering any of those options. Zoning is also considered as an aspect of the environmental impact statement. There's an entire chapter on zoning and the comprehensive plan that was in the DEIS and is also going to be in the FAIS. And I believe the applicant, well, ultimately the FEIS will be the planning board's document that it'll adopt itself. But the applicant has been working on preparing it and then submitting it to the planning board for review. And the planning board, which has been serving as lead agency for the seeker review, that will be addressed in that document. So,
So just as part of just to clarify, as part of the process, it had been the advice that has come from council to the board has basically been that the process itself, the planning board process itself, is a process in which there are multiple points to address the lead agency, which is right at this point, the planning board, for the public to address about any of the concerns. And all of those concerns are also to be and have been already in the first draft of the environmental impact statement addressed to some degree, and they are continuing to evolve as part of the final environmental impact statement. Also, you know, that was a process that that not every project, not every board or every planning board in whether it's in this municipality or other municipalities requires that developers actually go through an entire environmental impact statement. Oftentimes boards will say, no, we don't think that you need to go through this whole process. It's a very lengthy process, and there are many different pieces of it that are to be looked at. And all of those are pieces that show, presumably to any board and any member of the public that looks at all of the different pieces of that document, what the impact would be to a community. And as part of the public hearing process for the planning board, at this point, it's before the planning board. When it would come back to the town board for the zoning change, if the town board would be to consider that zoning change, there would be an opportunity for all of the additional issues that the public would have to raise about that consideration would come out at that time. Is that correct? I mean, is that fair to evolve?
Yes.
I just wanted you to clarify.
We're asking for a courtesy to have conversation with this board the same way the developer has been given 2 opportunities to do that. We recognize that this is before the planning board. We have also been before the planning board. And every time we bring up the aspect of zoning, we're referred back to your board. And I attempted to
And I
reach out
spoke
to
at
you.
length too, so to actually say that that we didn't
No,
speak
you
is not
spoke
true.
you
We
spoke
absolutely
at
spoke.
length with
Yes.
me well before my email.
At the point at which, at the
about
point
the
at which
project,
threatened the
not about-
lawsuit, advice of counsel was that not address you
No,
until the
and sorry,
public
again,
process.
you gave me no choice but to hire legal counsel. You gave me no choice. I was not in conversation with legal counsel. I reached out to you on several occasions, even by telephone. You put my back up against the wall. This is the choice that you made for the town of Ossining, not me.
Just to be
It's
clear,
a courtesy that you should be giving to your constituents before you give it to a developer. And that's the problem. It's the rumors and the distrust that the residents have with this board, because it looks like all these backdoor deals are happening. I mean, these are what neighbors are saying. They're seeing people gathering at the site, and that some of you have been present, but you haven't even given us the opportunity to address that with you.
I'm going to recommend that at this point in time, you not address this issue anymore.
Okay. With that, I would take a motion to go into executive session for advice of counsel and personnel. Have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week at our work session, June 4th, 16 Croton Avenue.